Hello everybody, welcome to another video. My name is Infinity and today I am back with another knitting tutorial. So for today's tutorial I wanted to show you guys some more knitting techniques. Today I want to show you guys how to weave in your ends as you go along. I don't know if you all are like me, but I absolutely loathe weaving in my ends after I finish a project. So I have a couple of different methods on how I do so, and that is what this video will encompass today. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into it. So this swatch that I have right here, I have woven in both my initial strand from my cast on, and then I have also woven in the ends from color change. So I'm going to first show you guys how I wove in my end from the cast on. That's particularly helpful. You can just snip it off of there once you weave it in because it's nice and embedded in the project, and you have no more issues. Now some people, they have a preference to not do this method because it makes the fabric a little bit thicker, but I personally prefer that look, so it's entirely up to you to use this method. So let's say I want to cast on a few stitches, start a project. I'm not going to do a whole bunch here. Oops. Alright, so once I have cast on my desired amount of stitches, what I then do is I take both my working yarn and my extra long leftover tail and I tension them on my finger as though I was about to knit with them, and that's actually what I'm going to do. I'm going to knit with them, and you can do this with either knitting or purling, but I usually always knit my first row. So you can just go about knitting with both of those strands. And like I said, it does give you that thicker edging at the bottom, but I personally enjoy that look, so it's completely up to you. Now you can avoid this by using the second method that I'm going to show you guys on this other swatch. But by doing this, your tail is definitely embedded within the project. It's not going to wiggle loose, and you can basically just snip it, and it's totally up to you whether you carry it to the end of your row or not. I tend to do so just because I like that consistent thickness of that first row to get me started in my project. Oops. Alright, and then you would just start knitting the rest of your project as normal, and you'll be left with a row that basically looks like this first row. It's thicker, it's spongier, but your end is woven in. Now I'm going to move on to my second method. Alright, so what we're going to do on this row now is we are going to change color, and we are going to be weaving in the ends from our color change all the way across this row. So I went ahead and I snipped my color A. I left about 4 inches of tail, which is all I'll need. And so for the color we're going to connect, you can make a loop just by folding over the yarn like this, and you can leave a tail that's about 4 inches as well. And I'm going to insert my needle knitwise, and I'm going to just attach this yarn as I normally would, just like that. Now sometimes your end strand can be a little loose, so what you want to do is just pull on that yarn from the previous row just to like tighten that up a little bit. Alright, once you have attached that next color of yours, what you're going to do is you're going to end up taking up these tails that you now have, and you are going to twist them kind of twist them like that. And what you're going to do is you're going to wrap them over your new working yarn, and you're going to just let them hang down. And you can hold them along your work like this, or you can hold them using the other hand if you're good at two-handed knitting. But then what we're going to do is just use our new working yarn, and we are just going to knit that stitch. And so now we've brought our tails over one stitch. So what we want to do now is just do regular knitting in the next stitch. And then in the next stitch, what you can do is you can twist the yarn again, and it kind of makes it look one-stranded almost, and you are again going to just bring it over your working strand and pull it down like so. And then you're going to go ahead and knit this next stitch as normal. Oops. Alright, you're going to keep doing that all the way across, or should you get tired, because this method does not add any bulkiness to your project, you could actually just stop weaving it in after maybe 5 or 6 stitches, maybe 8 at most. Like I said, you could also carry them all the way across. So I'm going to knit my next stitch without, and then I'm going to twist my yarn, go ahead and bring it over my working yarn, and I'm going to go ahead and knit. Alright. And so, let me see, I've done 6 stitches already doing this. So, what I'm going to do is just drop them, and I'm going to continue to knit this piece all the way across. Oops. Alright. And I'm going to do this again. Alright, so again, what we want to do is change colors. So, I went across and I did a row of purling, so I'm back on another row of knitting. And I'm going to insert my needle as though I was going to knit. And I'm again making a loop with my color I'm connecting with about a 4 to 6 inch tail, and I'm just going to connect this yarn to my row. Now see, this is a really good example of the end stitch being super loose, so you just take the working yarn from that previous color and you just cinch it a little bit, not too tight. Alright, now what I do, and I know this can be a little bit confusing at first, but with a little bit of practice it's actually really easy. So what I do now is I take the 2 tails that I now have, one of them coming from the new color I just connected, and the other one is coming from the yarn that I just used, and you want to have about 4 to 6 inches of it just to be on the safe side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up twisting up, like just twisting them together, these 2 tails, just like that. And I like to lay mine over the back of the working yarn for that first stitch, and I hold it up against my project so it's not flailing all in the way, and I tension my newly connected color on my finger. I insert my needle as though I were going to knit, and then I just knit with that strand. Oops, that's on my finger. Alright, now the next stitch we're just going to knit, and then we are going to go about twisting that yarn again. And this, I feel it just helps the yarn that you're using feel more like one strand, even though this method does not add to the thickness of any of your stitches. Now I'm going to again wrap this over the back of my working yarn, hold it up against my project, and I am going to insert my needle and just knit. Oops. I'm going to knit with the second color. Alright, and I'm just going to keep doing that, alternating, carrying over that yarn and just knitting all the way across until I just like feel like I'm ready to drop. Now it depends on the slip that your yarn has. Like right now I'm using Red Heart and that yarn catches fairly well, so I only do about 6 or 7 stitches of this, and then I can just drop it and continue knitting on my project. If you're having like a more slippery yarn like a silk or like Caron Simply Soft, then you are going to want to knit in more stitches. And in my personal opinion, if you feel like it's going to slip out, you can always use Freight Check, which I always have handy, and it's like a liquid stitch and it will hold that loose end in place. So I'm just going to keep knitting. Let's see, I just knit one, so I'm going to carry it on the next one. And this gets really easy as you continue to work it. It just takes a little practice. Like I said, if you're good at two-handed knitting, then you can pick this up in no time and not even have to do all the dropping and switching that I do. Alright, now that I've gone all the way across, I want to flip this over and I want to look at the back of this. So, as you can see here, I've ended up weaving in my stitches. Now, certain yarns, it might look better to weave in your end with every stitch. Other ones, it might look better to do it every other. You definitely want to keep count because you can tell where you may or may not have skipped a stitch. Like here, I knit 2 without carrying it over, and I knit 2 over here without carrying it over, and I can tell. But considering this is usually the inside of the work, it usually doesn't matter too much. For these ends, you have several options. Now, either you can snip them super close to where they're coming out of the project, like I did here and down here, and you can use the Freight Check. It doesn't take really much of it at all, just a little dab here and maybe down here where I did that, and it'll dry, and when it dries you can snip off those extra ends. Some people leave them hanging there. That's not my personal preference. But then up here where you have the longer strings, you could actually tie them off in a knot first, and then you could still use the Freight Check, or you could leave it. It's totally up to you. The choice is yours. Actually want to knot that. I hope today's video was helpful for you guys. If so, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up down below. Leave me a comment. Let me know how I did. If you want me to explain a little bit more in another video, I will be more than happy to do so. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on awesome weekly content such as this. I post knitting tutorials of various types every Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. CST. Don't forget to check me out on my other social media. If you guys don't know, I started an Instagram page up just for Infinity Crafting Co. about mid-July, and it's growing steadily over there, and that is where I post announcements regarding tutorials, pattern releases, shop releases, and the like related to Infinity Crafting Co. Don't forget to check me out on Etsy as well as Teespring, all of which is linked down in my description box below. I am pretty much on everything except for Snapchat, so I have something out there for everybody. And until next time, guys, happy making.